welcome to the first episode of Apolitically Correct 2025. Your perennial host, Anouks Kian Jabur, is indisposed and has requested me, Jonathan Subrian, General Secretary of ANUG, to be your host or moderator for today's excursion into Apolitically Correct. With me in the studio is ANUG's Chairman, Dr. Marc France, and ANUG's Assistant General Secretary, Mr. Joel Ramesh. Without further ado, I'll ask Dr. France, first of all, to introduce himself, and then Joel Ramesh to then thereafter introduce himself. Thank you.
Hi.
Doc?
Good evening to all our viewers, and I must say a happy new year to each and everyone here. We welcome the opportunity of having continued interactions with you, and you will be seeing much more from us here at ANUG and from the regular hosts of the Apolitically Incorrect Guyana show in the future, especially in this year 2025, an important year. Once again, good night, and let's have a wonderful show.
Right.
Joel?
Hi. General Secretary, thank you for having me here. And Mr. Chairman, so I'm here to mainly encourage our young people to vote this year because it's election season, and it will usually persons who are young, they don't think it's their place to vote, but you have the right to vote and you should.
Well, though the years between the two of you are not so distinctly different, but I'm glad you're here to represent the younger, no knock on you, Doc, but the younger version of the Guyanese public. And we will be peppering you with questions, and we want to hear from you, your views as that of the younger generation here.
All right.
So before we go into the discussions, I'd like to make a statement here that this program this afternoon, the three people you see here are all representatives of ANUG. And we're taking the advantage, because we have the program today, to speak specifically on ANUG's political position. So any discussions we'll be having will be exclusively ANUG's position, ANUG's philosophy, ANUG's intent, and ANUG's projections going into 2025 as an election year and further than 2025. So without further ado, I will ask Dr. France, ANUG's chair, to introduce the key points about ANUG's new year and the year after 2025. Dr. France?
Thank you, Jonathan. 2025 is an important year, and as such, I would like to just begin. I would like to ask of the Guyanese people, what is it that they expect in 2025? We know that it is an elections year. We know that during election times, people tend to see lots of things happening in the political spectrum here in the country. But I would simply like to start. How did you break the new year? Jonathan, how did you break the new year? Joel, how did you break the new year? Let's start there.
Is that a rhetorical question, Doc, or you really gonna want an answer to that?
I just want your answer quickly.
I broke the new year at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was at Lenero Park, running 5 miles, 10,000 steps. My Fitbit told me that. And it looks like they had a revelry the night before, because there were still tents and boxes, etc., in Leonora track and field when I went there in the morning to run. That's how I broke it.
Thank you.
But I also broke it by thanking God for allowing me to see one more day. Go ahead, Doc.
I broke the new year in my bed on TikTok with my friends.
Wonderful. So to each his own. I can say I personally broke the new year with family. I went over by one of my siblings, and we had a quiet evening. Some good discussions at that forum there. But it was what we normally do, and I know that is the same for lots of Guyanese. However, what I do know for sure, and based on what we see on social media, we live in the age of social media. Joel just mentioned TikTok. We have Facebook that is always up to date. We have WhatsApp that people are always in tune. You're in the various groups. And we would have seen lots of images of the revelry, indeed, that you're mentioning, Jonathan, and other celebrations in and around the country. What I did notice, and personally, I had a little experience here, is there seems to be some levels of inequality in our country. And this was shown in well, for a majority of cases, where you broke the new year, with whom you broke the new year. We saw parties, very expensive parties. I can remember one off the bat here. I think it is Eden Hotel by Best Western. I think they had a ticket selling for 45,000 Guyana dollars for you to attend that celebration. And the average ticket for the higher price New Year's balls were around that same price, 50,000, if not more. So that is just what you had to pay to enter.
Is that to price out the Guyanese and encourage the foreigners, or is it something that the Guyanese would pay for that? $40,000?
Well, that should be taken into context
Does
because
that include alcohol?
well, I don't know what it included. My hope is that it included everything.
Meals?
Meals and alcohol and everything. But how many of our current citizens of Guyana can afford to splurge $45,000 on a New Year party?
And 5 hours, 6 hours party, right?
5 hours, 6 hours party, even if it ran into the next morning.
Yeah.
Okay? We know that our pensioners cannot, if they're dependent on their pensions alone. We know that the persons who receive disability grants, they cannot. And so maybe you would have saved all of your monies because you wanted to be a part of that clique. And that is clearly showing here in Guyana that we have an ever-expanding gap between the haves and the have-nots. And the pictures tell a whole tale. When you saw who were the persons at those parties, and when you saw the persons who were elsewhere, on the seawall, on the road tops, and I come to the road top because around 2 o'clock I left to go home from my sister's house. And I happened to drive on the East Coast, the railway road. And there was a huge party at the Plaisance Line Top, the famous Plaisance Line Top that normally has a Thursday night session. That blocked the entire road. The traffic came to a standstill. I was in that traffic for about an hour waiting there. And I saw police vehicle on police vehicle. I saw motorcycle riders, police on motorcycles. They would go up, see what was happening, and then turn back. And no one saw it important for there to be some order, for the roadways to be free, and for the incumbents that people were facing to be addressed. So clearly we can see a breakdown in our system, but I wouldn't even say a breakdown because this is something that is quite normal. And I saw particularly here that although a new year is here, things remain the same. And the police force that we expect to give us law and order, that we expect to treat all our citizens and ensure that their safety is encouraged, they were not doing their job. Maybe they were not enough.
Dr. France, as a chairman of ANUG, what can you do, or what do you think ANUG can do going to 2025 to mitigate the circumstances you just espoused?
Professionalism of the police force, where you hold each and every officer accountable. Meaning that once you have your, for example, your Office of Professional Responsibility that normally investigates such, when complaints are made against certain officers for not doing their job, that a fair and transparent inquiry is done. And we have seen on numerous occasions whereby things are allowed to slide. I am in a group, the Guyana Forum group, and I saw a complaint from a very senior person in that group. It was one Mr. Bash, I think he's Imam Bash, complaining about trying to reach out to the police force to address noise nuisance. He showed a litany of calls that he made to the BV police station, which is 5 minutes away from where he lives. And they were unable to address any of those complaints in a matter of 4, 5, 6 hours. So those sessions ran until into the wee hours of the morning. And clearly, again, that is a lack of order, and the police force itself not doing their job as they are given the responsibility for same. So our call is, and ANUG is not about complaining. We want to see you do your job. We have seen increased remunerations for public servants, the police being some of it, but more so the discipline service, which the police belong to, having a whole 1 month bonus in terms of their salary. So you would expect that having given them this blessings at Christmas, that they would go out and do their job. But clearly, we've seen some issues there. But I don't want to harp on it all the time.
Well,
my hope is that it can be addressed going forward.
Well, I see the president is reading the Riot Act. I see the Ministry of Works, the minister is also reading the Riot Act. I see the VP reading the Riot Act and certain instances and certain situations. Do you think that the police are getting a freebie and not held to the same standards that the others are being held to or will be held to? I mean, even with the sudden, not the sudden, but the police commissioners being given an extension of his stay way past the retirement age. So my question again is the police department, the Guyana police, getting a free pass versus the other ones that we see that are being held accountable?
Well, I do think so. And it's not an extension, Jonathan. He has actually been confirmed.
Right.
Substantive confirmation of his position. And so you would expect now that you're not acting, even though you were acting before, you would expect for there to be better results from the top down. And for each and every officer in the police force to be held accountable. And that starts all the way from the Commissioner of Police. And so I will echo the call here of Anouk for us to ask of the Guyana Police Force for them to be professional, for them to be accountable, for them to be transparent in their work and ensure that the safety of the citizens and that they comply with their mandate as governed by the Constitution. Because this is something that Anouk sees as being very important and we want that to be addressed and addressed in the right manner. Okay?
I hear you, Doc. I hear you.
We also we saw lots of messages that went out there for the new year. We know this is something that normally happens. You have your message from your president. His Excellency Irfan Ali had a long message. I saw a long message from the vice president. I saw a message from the leader of the opposition. I saw messages from other individuals out there involved in on the political scene and the other sectors, civil society, religious organizations, etc. We did send out our own message as a political party because we know it is important for us to reach out to our constituents, to talk to our members who would have voted for us, and to ensure that we have this continued collaboration with the general public. So what did Anouk ask for in our official message? We congratulated the government on the improved economic status. We are about giving Jack his jacket. And the fact that Guyana grew up to the mid-year report by about 25%, right? That is something that we must commend those who are there and are responsible for such. And I know for sure when the second half year report comes out, we will see continued growth. We have also seen projections from the large organizations stating that for the next 4 to 5 years, the IMF, the World Bank, that Guyana will grow on average about 20% per year, which is huge.
Yeah.
No country is growing as such.
Not in this day and age.
Not in this day and age. One of the other countries I noticed that has great projections is Senegal. Senegal, who recently had elections. They got a new president. They've recently found oil. They have gas that is coming on shore, on stream quite soon. Their projections are for around 10% growth per annum. So Guyana is still leading the world in this aspect. We congratulated the government for this because we believe it is their policies and it is their work that resulted in same. So Anouk has congratulated the government. We've also congratulated them because we've seen increased entrepreneurial developments whereby, and I focus here mostly on the youths. We've seen lots more youths getting involved in entrepreneurship. We've seen many persons getting contracts. We've seen many persons getting startup businesses, and we've seen youths and women.
I was going to ask you that, but go ahead. Yeah.
Getting more involved. So we congratulated the government for such also. We've also seen Guyana on the whole having an improved standing internationally. We did mention one example in our message that went out, the visit after a number of years of a very high level leader, the Honorable Narendra Modi, who came here to Guyana. If you go on social media, if you go on TikTok, if you go on Facebook, if you go on the other social media platforms, you will see that because of that one visit from PM Modi, the increased coverage that Guyana has, given that India has a population of 1.45 billion persons. As soon as you go there, what is Guyana? Who is Guyana? Why is Modi
I'm
visiting?
glad you said that. Let me explain something to you. A couple of years ago, 2016, I worked in India. And we stayed at Lalit Hotel, you know, the hotels and stuff like that. So in conversation, people would ask, where you from? I would say Guyana, and they would look at me. But once you say Chandrapal, or you say Shiv Charan, or you say the guy from the Trinidad, then they know. Yeah. So they fixated with cricket, and I guess Guyana made that impact, or the West Indies made that impact. So once you say Chandrapal's name is like God for them up to 2016, and Lara. Those are the two names that, with the younger folks, especially the Chandrapal and Lara, resonates with them. So that's how we were known. But now Modi has put us again on
Modi has put us on the map. Yeah. My personal experience living outside of Guyana, when you went outside and here, where are you from? Oh, Guyana. Oh, Ghana in Africa. Because that was the norm. Oh, Ghana from Africa. No. Guyana is actually on the map. And this is something that we all should be proud of as Guyanese. And we should try to sell that positive image of our country always. Anouk, in our New Year's message also, we ask for unity and continued unity, because we have seen, especially in the political scene, that there are huge divisions with regard to the major groupings. Anouk has always been about inclusiveness. Anouk has always been about bringing the major parties together and working in a unified manner. So when we looked at certain things, we asked that, can the parties come together and address the impasse at GCOM? Can the parties come together and address the impasse with the substantive appointments of the Chief Justice and Chancellor?
So, Doc, hold on one second. Let's talk a little bit, sorry to digress. Let's talk a little about the appointment or the non-appointment of the Chief Justice and Chancellor, right? Somebody I saw in a discussion group that one of the criteria to be considered is longevity of tenure or longevity in that job. And I have to tell you, I have a philosophical difference when I hear longevity in a job. For me, production or successful production or qualitative and quantitative analysis of what you have done for the 15, 10, 5 years in the job should be one of the criteria to be judged for permanency. I may be wrong, but I honestly don't believe if you're in a job 15 years or 20 years, that should be enough of a criteria to vault you to that. Your thoughts on that? Yeah.
We know that this is a very important topic. We know this is something that has been ongoing through various administrations. Mm-hmm. We've seen the current Chief Justice being there since 2017.
Of course.
And the Chancellor probably a bit longer. And they've been acting ever since. Even when Justice Chang was there, he was acting also.
And then after Carl Singh was also acting for a while.
Now we have the President in his New Year's message talking about the appointments, and it must be done in the right manner. It must be guided by what the Constitution says. You have in your consultations and with your agreement with the opposition leader. Mm-hmm. But he also mentioned this is something that he's been looking at actively. He's been looking at it actively for the past 4 years. How active is actively now?
Is that an oxymoron?
The same thing we spoke about on our last show. In the near future, actively, very soon. These words that they throw out there, but really they mean nothing. No, because they don't want to get it done. For whatever reason it is, whether or not you're not satisfied with the performance of the incumbents, but my question is, how can you not be satisfied when you've had them acting in that position for a number of years?
And to your point, even if you're not satisfied, why don't you put it out there and see if there's other people internal in Guyana or external Guyana who can fill a position?
That is Anouk's call. Mm-hmm. If you're not satisfied with those who are currently acting, then open up the applications so that, and I'm talking worldwide, Commonwealth, the Caribbean. Yeah. Look for persons who, if you have an issue with this person, if you can't come to agreement with the leader of opposition, that everyone can come to an agreement. We have seen that when certain things are being discussed, there is unity. And I mentioned this. We mentioned this in our New Year's message. We mentioned the border issues that we face with Venezuela, whereby the opposition and those in government and the general Guyanese population, non-partisan, we all work together. We've seen in a large sense when we have cricket at the stadium for our CPL, the Guyana Amazon Warriors has a huge national following.
Yeah.
So we've seen unity right here in Guyana. Why is it for this issue we cannot have unity and we cannot resolve it? Anouk's call is for us to address it. If you have an issue with the incumbents, and it shouldn't be because they've been acting for 4 or 5 years now, and you haven't had an issue since. And the president was very careful in the selection of his words that he used, is that he's looking at it actively. Even if, and some mentions were made with regard to decisions, we have a system whereby our highest court that the Guyanese system has is the CCJ. So even if you were not satisfied with some of the decisions at the Court of Appeal, then you go with all the way up, and you must respect that chain. Okay, so this is something that we can, and we are calling for the Guyanese people to call on the government, to call on the leader of the opposition, to get this out of the way as soon as possible and get those persons who are supposed to be there in their substantive position.
So there's a crutch here. And one of the crutch, and I've heard this also on several engagements, is that the prior government unilaterally appointed
Patterson.
Mr. Patterson, right? And but it's not a game for tit for tat.
No.
And again, I hearken to this, that this government was voted in to administer Guyana to the best of their ability and to elevate every single human being, regardless if they voted for you or not. That should be the mantra. And you shouldn't point finger to somebody, they did this, so we're going to do this. One should not equate to another. And it seems that the stagnation in those two appointments smacks of a political, not interference, but they need to have political consideration. Now, in all fairness, again, when they had that imbroglio about that 33-32, one court in Guyana said one way, the Supreme Court said another way, and then went to the CCJ for another determination. And something like that maybe is giving pause to the government. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if some of the players in the Supreme Court,
the Court of Appeal,
right, the Court of Appeal, if they were actually, for or against whichever prevailing government was at that time. So maybe these are all other factors that gets involved. But to your point, if you're not satisfied with the two that we have, externalize it. Send the open application for other people that are around the Commonwealth, the Caribbean, in the Central America, et cetera, to apply to see who's the best person, both the opposition as well as the prevailing government, the chief president in this case, to come to a consistent agreement, the judicial arm, especially coming to an election. They should be there in place.
Mr. Chairman.
Joel, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add something. I've worked in human resource management for 6 years, and there is a probation period I usually give staff, which is about 3 months, to test them to see if they're fit for that position, or we can utilize their skills that they have developed on the job or already have in another department. But 4 years is not a probation period.
And it's been longer than 4 years for some.
And also there's a definition of insanity, repeating something over and over and expecting a different result.
If you do something 10 times and you get the same result, if you do the 11th time and you expect a different result, they said that's the definition or one definition of insanity.
That is just madness.
So again, the blame has to ultimately fall on our leaders, but I would take some of the blame, and I mean myself a Guyanese, you a Guyanese, yes, because we have voted in those leaders. Yes. We have allowed them to trample on our constitutional right by the non-appointments of those persons. We are the ones who have them there. We are the ones who refuse to call them out. And because, the previous government did this, right, so we are allowed to do this. No. We are the ones who allow this to continue. And we need to make it stop. We need to put it to an end. And that is what Anouk is calling for. And we are not only calling on the members of Anouk, we're calling on the wider Guyanese public to play your part, to highlight the inadequacies of such decision making, and for you to call out your government, for you to call out your leaders of the opposition, and ensure that this issue is resolved once and for all.
We have, we also, as a moderator, let you know that you can call if you have a question. And no question is a stupid question. You can call and ask any question you want. The numbers are there on our screen. You can call us at any time within the hour that we are here. And we promise you we'll answer your questions pragmatically, honestly. And if we don't have an answer, we'll tell you we don't have an answer. We'll take a number and we will get back for you. And that's a promise that Anouk makes for you. We do not over promise and under deliver. So you grab your phone, give us a holler. Let us know what ails you, whatever questions you have. If you need clarification on certain issues, we'll certainly be able to accommodate you. So our phone lines are also open. Thank you.
Yeah. Continuing with our message, and this is Anu's call, and it's always been Anu's call. We call for continued mutual respect at all levels, mutual respect for your co-workers, mutual respect for your family members, mutual respect for your political opponents, mutual respect for the international agencies that you deal with. Everyone here in Guyana, we want to see mutual respect from the Guyanese population. We call for peace, we call for prosperity, and we call for inclusivity of all Guyanese, especially in decision making regarding our future and that of our kids. We call for respect of the rule of law. I mentioned what was happening in Pleasance Line top there. And we've seen a lot of persons seems to have different privileges depending on what income bracket you have and what in the Guyanese parlance, what links you have. We want the rule of law to be adhered to strictly, no matter where you work, how much you earn, or who you know. Because systems is it what must fix our country. And it is very sad because I worked, I was on call last evening, but I worked the Tuesday before the holiday. And the Wednesday evening rather, you started to see road accidents. You started to see persons dying. Some persons were out there filming all of the vehicles that ended up in the trench, were in some accident or whatever. If you don't fix your system, if you allow bribes to continue to be passed, if you allow someone to call someone higher when they break the law, then these things will continue. And we must put an end to it. We also ask for thinking outside the box. We ask for camaraderie. And no one has a monopoly on thought. No one has a monopoly on what is good for our country. And that brings me to yesterday's press conference. Yesterday's press conference by the Vice President, the useless parties, persons who've never governed, persons who don't know what it is to run a country, persons who know nothing or have no plan. Apparently, this gentleman thinks he is the only person who has the God-given right to run this country, to have plans for this country, and decide what is it that the future must have for Guyana.
You think that's hubris or ego on his part to think like that all the time? He has the silver bullet for every single situation?
No, he does not think he's the
whatever it is, there will be a rude awakening for him and for all who follow him and think such. Because we know that every vote matters. We know that each and every individual's thoughts, opinions, and ideas matter. And that is why Anug is about listening to the Guyanese people. And we are calling on you. We'll be reaching out to you to give us your ideas, give us your thoughts, and let us address the issues that are facing you.
I'll just stick a pin in that part, Doc, and I want to go to this young fellow over here. So, Joel, you represent the bulk of Guyana, for the Guyanese population, between the age of 80 and 45, you guys are 65% of that population. The rest of us will be dead and gone in maybe 15, 20 years, and you guys will be left either holding a prize or holding a pig in a bag, in Guyanese parlance. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the pulse? I know you've gone to do a lot of site visits and interacting with folks in different parts of Guyana through your work and through your study and everything else. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the pulse of the youth or the youthful population in reference to politics and voting? Because this is a crucial year for everybody.
I had a discussion with a gentleman 2 weeks ago. He asked me, I told him I got recently involved in politics. He asked me a very interesting question. He asked me, do you know who's the king of Guyana? Yes, yeah, he asked if I know who's the king of Guyana. So I said, king, what do you mean we don't have
monarchy?
Yeah, so he's like, so he asked me, how are you involved in politics again? You don't know who's the king of Guyana. It said we have a president and a vice president. He said, no, the king of Guyana is Barra Jagdeer. The general secretary of the PPP. I said, okay.
So he's the power behind the throne, so to speak, then, right?
So I asked him what brought you to that conclusion.
Let's take this call.
Take a call. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have a question for Dr. France.
For Dr. France. Go ahead.
I have 3 questions, actually.
What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Maria.
Maria is good. Thank you. Hi, Maria.
Maria, I may ask, how old are you? Your voice sounds quite young. So maybe you're in the same population range like Joel. Under 35, definition by UN standards, you may be a youth. So yeah, let's hear what the youth are thinking.
Okay. So my first question to you, for the longest time, there have been 2 dominating political parties. My first question would be, how likely is it for a third party or third parties to gain support and do well in the upcoming election?
Thank you very much. We got a question. You said 2 more?
Yes. My other question, considering the delays with the current 100,000 cash grant, how does ANO think the government will... my question, does ANO think the government will give out more cash grants as elections get closer in 2025? And my next question, there have been many complaints about the unfairness and lack of transparency in the past cash grant distribution, like the COVID relief, farmers grants, and the fisherman support. How can ANO push for better transparency and accountability to prevent these issues in the future?
Those are very provocative and great questions.
Thank you very much. Those are wonderful questions, and I think they're very apt. I'm going to start. Thank you. I don't know if you want to hold or you're going to go.
I would like to hold.
You like to hold? Okay, yeah. We have seen continuously since independence, basically we've had 2 large groupings. And this has not changed quite much. In 2006, we did see a third party stepping up to the plate and actually doing quite a lot, the AFC. 5 seats, 6 seats, 7 seats, and then they coalesce. When I mentioned the messages from the various political parties and various organizations, we also saw messages from some individuals. And here is where it is very important for the Guyanese public to take note. 2 individuals in particular. We saw a message by one Mr. Muhammad, and we saw a message by one Mr. Glenn Lal. 2 persons who, in the public domain, it has been touted, may have political ambitions. And you know what, Jonathan? There were comparisons that were made with the president's speech and that from Mr. Muhammad. And in 24 hours, Mr. Muhammad's message had over 230,000 views, whereby the president's message had only 45,000 views. The shares were over 600 for Mr. Muhammad, and the shares for the president was much less. Now, that clearly shows, and this is a private individual who does some philanthropical work. I think she went.
You can continue talking.
Yeah, who does some philanthropical work, having a huge following. We've also seen a lot of shares for the views of one Mr. Glenn Lal, who's been very critical of the happenings in the oil sector. Now, this clearly shows you that there is a section of the population that is open to new ideas, a section of the population that is willing to listen to ideas that are different from those that are put forward from the 2 major groupings. And this is not something that is strange. This is something that we have seen 2006 to now. Every single election cycle, the governing party has only won by 1 seat. And in the last election cycle, if you combine all of the third party's votes, it came up to over 10,000. 3 of those were involved in the joiner list, and we had 5,500 and we won a seat. Now, that shows that if you have the right message, if you have the right individuals to carry your message, that there is the possibility for success in 2025. That is a clear indication that a significant population out there, and we've seen it around 30 to 35,000, who are willing to not vote race, who are willing to not vote PPP because they belong there, or the Yapno FC because they belong there. And this is where ANOG has an important role to play, because our message has always been for inclusivity. Our message has always been for getting the parties to work together. Our message has always been for a unified Guyana. And I think that of all the other parties that are out there, our message is the message that will appeal to this 30 to 35,000 voters that are out there. So I would say that a new united Guyana has a very good chance, once we get our message out there, once we interact with the people, of having success at the next election.
The second question she asked about the delays in the cash grant. She talked about the current cash grant.
Jonathan, you want to take that one?
Yes. This is Jonathan. Maria, this is your second question about the delays in the cash grant and how we feel as an organization or as a human being. So I'll give you both. As a human being, I think it's a great thing for all the Guyanese to be able to...
I think you're getting the next call.
Not
on your phone?
Your phone.
No, I can't take that. Yeah. I think the Guyanese, as an individual, is a little bit richer by the 100,000 cash grant. I think it was well-intentioned by the government to give this $100,000 cash grant with all the kinks that there is. However, the distribution method of this cash grant seems to be very suspect, and it's increasing the frustration level of the people who are the recipient of the cash grants, especially the old, the infirm, the old age people, the one who collected NIS and old age pension. Now, there could have been different ways, and I've always said this: taxpayers fund the think tanks that the government employ. Now, a simple thing like the teachers having to go to St. Stanislaus College to stand up in the rain, sun, whatever, to receive their money. Could those checks not have been distributed to the HM for the different schools and have the teachers go to those schools to pick up their checks in the different divisions? That's the first thing. Second thing is, Guyana the Ministry of Finance knows that every person over 18 years old who is employed by the government of Guyana, at least the government of Guyana, should be able to receive that money as an introduction in their paycheck or in the bank that they receive, they have that cash from. Thirdly, the ones who are receiving the old age pension, just like how they have the books at the different distribution centers that receive their monthly payment, why can't the cash grant have gone there to the stations there are where they receive their monthly payments and receive their money there? There are two schools of thoughts. Do you want to avoid cronyism and theft, or do you want to increase cronyism and theft? The jury's still out on that. Like I said before, the president may have great intentions, but if the people that work for the president are not in alignment with the president's views, chaos like this will continue. And always remember, Doc, you said it just now, a seat for any political party is 5,500, between 5,000 and 5,500 votes. This can negatively impact the different government organizations, political organizations, comes the voting time. The frustration, I've listened to them today, for example, that we went to Leonora, and I'll call it specifically Leonora, and they handed out maybe 600 or 700 numbers. And once that number is handed out, that's enough for the day. But somebody would have a number, let's say 350, and comes in like 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and somebody has a number waiting at 6 o'clock in the morning and has a number like 5 or 6 or 10, but the person who has a number 350, 400 get through faster than they won. Why? We heard, and this is what we heard from 3 sources, that the guards who are putting them in line, they give them a small piece to the guards who take their ID card, take them forward there, and have their checks and everything out for them and ready for them in 10, 15, 20 minutes. While you're sweating, you're bleeding, you're crying, you want to go to the toilet, you want to sit down, you're fainting, and you still got to be in that sun and that rain there waiting for your check. Where's the system?
Fixing systems.
Right?
That's fixing systems. And my hope and our hope at ANOG is that we're going to give them some free pass, this being the first time.
Yes.
But the president and the vice president has been on record saying that this may not be the only cash grant that will be given out.
Right.
Our hope is that whichever cash grant is given out in the future is done in a fair and transparent manner, and it's accountable. So I come to the third question,
Right.
which asks about the unfairness, the lack of transparency in the previous cash grants, and some examples were made.
Yes.
I can say for sure that the only cash grant that has been done in a transparent manner is the school children's cash grant. You know why? Because there's an established register of persons who are in school. So you know each and every school child that is there. We don't know how many cash crop farmers are there. We don't know how many farmers who needed fertilizers are out there, rice farmers or whatever is it that they give it out to. We don't know how many fishermen are out there. We don't know how many persons benefited from the COVID grant, and we saw the long stories about pink slip, white slips, yellow slips.
So you're saying that if you are the government distributor of these grants, you can very well give it to all your friends and your family,
Most
and
certainly.
displace everybody else who really needs it.
This is the complaint that has reached ANUG, and this is the complaint that is there in the airwaves, because these cash grants that are subjective, that are given out by humans, that are given out by people who you know, especially in the far-flung areas, the NDCs who control and the officers who control, you would hear of entire families turning cash crop farmers. And they don't have a bed of bygone, or don't have pumpkin or anything growing. You would hear of persons who are rice farmers, and all they're doing is renting the land to somebody else who's doing the actual farming. You have heard of fishermen who or boat owners rather, who would be claiming for fishermen, and those persons don't actually work with them. Where is the transparency and such? And no one from the government side can come and defend same, because there's no established register. And when we ask for register, you know what we're going to ask for next? These persons, are they registered? Do they pay taxes?
Right.
Right. And that is why we need to fix the system. And so our hope is that with this cash grant, and I am thinking you're going to see possibly a next one. If this one takes 5 months, hopefully the next one will not take as much.
So to Maria's point, she was asking if we think many more cash grants will be given out before election, maybe to grease the palm, so to speak. The jury's still out on that, Maria. The president did say, and reiterated by the vice president, that there will be more cash grants, as to a period whenever was never stated. However, we are hoping and praying also that all the bottlenecks that they're experiencing this time around, they will straighten all those bottlenecks and take all the kinks out, so the future distributions will be efficient and will be less frustrating and time consuming. And Maria, thank you so much for all your questions.
Thank you very much. Very good questions.
I have something
Go ahead,
else to add to Maria's cash grant query. In case there are more persons thinking about or wondering if there's more cash grant that will be distributed, I'm not excited about this one, because the previous pink slip cash grant, I haven't received that as yet.
You see, we have a living example here.
I haven't been registered as
in
that.
The COVID grant.
So I'm not excited.
You still had a pink slip?
I didn't get the pink slip as yet.
Oh. Okay.
I was at work, so I had trouble acquiring the pink slip.
It was an inefficient way of parlaying and distributing this stuff. So we'll move on to something else. So I was asking before that call came through, Joel, about what do you think about the youthful population, their participation or lack thereof in politics? What's your pulse? What do you think?
They are terrified when they see lines of people lining up for things, because their grandparents explained to them when we were in our 70s, we had to line up for rice and oil and sugar. So when they see those things happening now, they wonder, hey, this seems very familiar. This is exactly what my grandparents told me would happen.
So you think it's like a deja vu moment where they think back of what? So, or is it also going to be a case that we are the youthful population cannot handle sociologically, they're not conditioned for those kinds of things?
No, they're not. Even if you go to take a haircut, I know that doesn't always happen there, but even if they don't take a haircut, you call to the barber, make an appointment.
So I'm going to add something here, and I'm going to give an example.
Go ahead.
About conditioning. Now, today I'm on Facebook, and I have quite a lot of friends on Facebook and followers and stuff. I saw a post by a young man, a young man who I have lots of respect for, medical professional, a politician, a budding politician, but more so someone who, since the 2020 election, which he did fought for free and fair elections, won Dr. Josh Kanai. He made a very interesting post, and I'm going to read some of it. This was his post. At least we ain't going to line up for ration rice and flour no more. We lining up for a grant that will stock a home for 2 months for a family of 3. We lining up for a grant that can fund your dreams of a little shop in front of your yard. We lining up, we lining up, we lining up. And he went on to a whole number of reasons of we lining up. So for young Josh Kanai, who, by the way, as far as I can remember, is an executive of the URP, but more so, he is the chair of the National Youth Organization that represents youths in Guyana. He's also very active in Men on a Mission, one of the president's initiative. So since the 2020 elections, we have seen Josh leading more towards the government, and he is well within his right to do same. Whether or not he represents those persons who would have voted for him with the TNM, or he's representing other Guyanese, that is up to him.
Let me tell you something about Josh Kanai, that personal experience. There was a young lady who had an accident and she was missing a thigh bone, a piece of thigh bone. They tried as much as they can to graft it from Trinidad. It didn't happen. So Josh, they had it out on social media. So I contacted him and said, how can I help personally? He said, well, I have to pay for the bone from Miami. I visited a young lady. She lives in Potentia, I think, at the back. They visited her, and she was like 14, 15 then, and she was literally bedridden and couldn't do anything about it. And I partially, apart from partially funding them to assist there, I partially funded with Josh Kanai to get the bone, and then he called me afterwards and told me that the transplant or the grafting was successful. The young lady lives in Wales. She's able to walk, not Wales, over there at the back, she's able to walk and everything else. So he does a lot of meritorious things. He does care.
No, my take is this. This is a young man who never grew up under Burnham. Josh is much younger than I am. So he knows nothing of what happened under Burnham. What he probably would have learned is what he heard from his parents, which is well within his right to hear. Your justification of the long lines at the St. Stanislaus College, the long lines at the various NIS offices, the inefficiency in the methodology that is being used for the distribution of the cash grant is at least we don't have to do it because 40 years ago, this is what we had to line up for. Now, that clearly tells you a lot about the mindset of young people, and more so young people who tend to be brainwashed by those that they look up to. There is no reason for us not to ask for betterment, for us not to ask for a system that functions, that is fair, that addresses all of the issues of the persons it is supposed to address, and do not justify mediocrity, because that post is mediocrity at its best.
It does not thrive.
If we want to go ahead as a nation, if we want to be Singapore, they got independence in 65, we got it in 66, and they're way ahead of us. If we want to catch up with them, such thinking must be abolished and out of the psyche of the youths of Guyana. Sadly, Josh is still there.
Yeah. So what do you think? If you think younger folks are politically acclimated or turn out to vote, you think they're going to stay home? What do you think?
Some will vote because they may not always speak up or speak out, but they're watching. They're watching everything that is unfolding on Facebook, and including the driver that my driver that brought me here today. He is about 24, 25. So I asked him, "Hey, are you going to vote next election?" He said, or this year. He said, "I'm thinking about it, but I'm watching how the government is performing, and I'm deciding if to vote for them or not." So I said, "Okay, well, what do you think? How do you think they're performing?"
So you think that they look at the political system as corrupt and divisive, and there's also tensions and favoritism?
I believe so. They think that way. They think that there are more that can be done for our citizens. We shouldn't. Some of they especially.
This is Jonathan.
You want to put on speaker if it's a call?
Hello.
Continuing, Joel. You're a member of the executive of A New United Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
You know some of the discussions we've had with regard to getting young people out there.
Huh? Hello.
Put on speaker.
We are. You have a question you want to ask? I'm going to put you on speaker.
Put on speaker. Let's hear the question.
Yeah, So you have a question you want to talk about? Oh, he hung up.
Right. So we have called out the major opposition on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
We know that there are internal divisions in the APNU camp, for example. That is not our business. We just hope that because they have a say in representing the Guyanese people, that they do it adequately where they're supposed to. So, for example, the walkouts in Parliament, when you're being paid to be in Parliament, when you're eating the free food when you're in Parliament, and then when you're supposed to go and debate robustly against the laws and motions that are out there, whenever anyone, and this goes towards both sides, decide to walk out for whatever reason. It has happened in the past with both sides, and that is why we call them out all the time, both sides together. You are not adequately representing your people. More so, for example, the office of the leader of the opposition, you have a huge subvention from the government whereby you're being paid by taxpayers' money to adequately represent them. Please ensure that you do your job. Coming back to the youths, as I was saying, you know some of the discussions we've had, and in your personal opinion here, I wouldn't be asking you Anuk's opinion because we already have our views with regard to how we're going to get the youth out there. I know that you have to go down to their level, and we've seen some of this with our current president, but we feel that more can be done, and Anuk is going to do more in some ways different. How you, as a young politician, Joel, can reach out to those persons out there, the youths who may not be interested in politics as much, who may have second thoughts in terms of going and vote. How are you going to get some of them out there? What are your personal thoughts?
It may seem very simple, but because it is, just listening to your youths, because they, even though, as I mentioned, they don't always speak out or speak up, they're thinking, they're watching, they notice what you're doing. But once you provide an opportunity for them to create and cause change in a positive way, like Anuk has, they will take that route.
Well, thank you, Joel.
Thank you very much.
We want to wrap up in a couple of minutes or so. You have any final thoughts on it now?
My call, and this is going to be an enduring call for the entire 2025, is for each and every citizen to get involved. I am asking for you to be involved in politics. I'm asking for you to hold your leaders accountable. I'm asking for you to ask for transparency. I'm asking for you to show mutual respect to your fellow citizens, especially during this election cycle. We know our message at Anuk is a message of unity. We know that it is a message that resonates with the entire Guyanese population, but more so, it resonates with the youthful population. That's 65% of persons that are 35 years and under. We know that that is our target group. We know that this is a niche group that can respond to our message. And we are asking you, and this is a public call, get involved in politics.
So how many seats you think by Anuk sending the message out there? You know you probably cannot win the behemoth parties, the two parties that are there with among them. So how many seats are you targeting, or think Anuk is targeting the generator to have the public discourse to generate seats? 2 seats, 3 seats, 4 seats? What are you thinking?
I am a very realistic person.
Yeah.
I do believe that there are 3 to 5 seats out there that can be won by third parties.
Question. If you win 3 or 5 seats, what would that do? What can that do?
So this depends on the voting public. If you vote a government that has an absolute majority or the majority, 33 seats, not much can be done. Not with the current winner-take-all system. However, for a third party like Anuk, 2 seats is a big win. A big win in that you are now eligible to go to Parliament. You now have someone who can second your motions, second everything that you put forward, something that does not currently exist. So we know that the joiner list has one seat only. And it is difficult, especially when you're seen as the new boy or new boys, for you to get support from either side. So the first target is to get at least 2 seats to get into Parliament.
Let me ask you again, Doc. I'm glad we're saying on that. So let's say Anuk gets 2 seats or 3 seats, right? Well, that would be like the pivot or the fulcrum, because you will be objective. You want to use that position that you have in the 2 seats to generate equity amongst all Guyanese. No partisan politics. Am I to understand that? No partisan politics here to generate equity. All right, there's another call coming. We'll probably try to take this call.
7:25. We got some more time.
Hello? Put in speaker. Go ahead, you're on speaker.
Speaking about young folks, my question is to NUG is what benefit would a young person have should ANUG win a few more seats in Parliament?
That's your question?
Yeah. What benefit would younger folks have voting for ANOG versus, say, the PPP? Should ANOG start a minority government?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go first, and then Jonathan, you can add here. ANOG believes that if there is a minority government, that we are able to hold that government more accountable in every decision making, in every decision that they make. Everything that is not questioned now, all of the bills, the budget, all of the makeup of the boards, we believe that at governance level, you can have improvements in your systems with a minority government. And our famous 2+2+1 formula, whereby every single board is now accountable to the Guyanese people, is now more transparent because of how is it that everything is reported and decisions are made, that no one grouping, no one party will have the ultimate say in anything that happens. And the famous one that we always mention is NPTAB, and we've seen the vice president and others saying that, oh, you know what, NPTAB don't need opposition representation because they stymie progress and stuff. No, if you have representation from all of the parties, 2 from the government side, 2 from a major opposition, 1 from a third party, you will have more transparency, and that would improve governance on the whole. And with improved governance, youths and the larger Guyanese population will benefit much more. We having a call?
No, and to your point, sir, you asked what is the benefit for the youthful population. I reiterate, you own this country.
Oh, certainly.
You own this country. Always remember that. You own this country. And because you own this country, it's incumbent upon you to ensure that all the largesse that the government is giving is equitably shared amongst all, number one. And the second thing is that ensure that the patrimony is also equitably shared and you're all into nation building. Everybody must be involved. All the youths must be involved. Like I said, the older folks will be dead and gone in a blink of an eye. You'll be left holding the country. And it's incumbent upon you to be able to positively have information for your children and your grandchildren as to what you did when you were in Guyana, when you had the opportunity to do something different. Thank you. Thanks.
So continuing my call and comes back to the youthful population.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
Is this the calling program?
Yes, this is a calling program. You're on speaker.
Thank you guys for taking my call. As a Guyanese that has, I take pride in listening to you guys and what you're trying to do, and I support you guys 100%. But let me say that, it is well needed work that you guys are doing. I like the president. I think he has the ability to go far and take Guyana to, as you guys said, Singapore. His name could be called synonymous with Lee King Wah, Singapore, but Guyana cannot go become a Singapore on the current system. We need systems in place. We need to build trust of the international community. We need more. For example, the foreign exchange issue. That is why there's no foreign exchange, because the international investors are making their money and they're pulling it all out. They're pulling every single dollar out because they don't trust the system to protect them. So I think the president can go far, but we need checks and balances. And you guys keep up the good work, and I'm a supporter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
I noticed that the number is a foreign number.
Yes.
Now, when you live in Canada, when you live in the United States, you have systems that function. You have institutions that function. And that is where we must start. And that is why we mentioned the 2+2+1 formula. If we can fix our institutions, if we can fix systems, then the issue with personalities will go away.
Thank you.
The issue with moving forward in terms of you did this and I'm going to do this, or you did this and I'm doing this because you did this, all that will be forgotten. Fixing systems is key. And that is where you, the Guyanese, that is where you, the youths, come in. Very, very important.
Thank you, Doc France.
One vote, one person.
Doc France is the chair for ANOG. is Assistant General Secretary for ANOG. I am the General Secretary for ANOG, Jonathan Subrian. And the program we have had today it was exclusively ANOGs and ANOGs views, etc. Mr. Jabbour should be back for the next program. So we thank you for listening. Thank you for all the questions. And the provocative questions are what we need, because we need to raise consciousness amongst all. This is the beginning of 2025. ANOG wish every single person in Guyana, within Guyana, without Guyana, please take care of yourself and your loved ones. Watch yourself on the road. Drive responsibly. Be a responsible human being to your fellow members, including your household. 2025 has great promise to everybody, but as long as we are alive, there's always hope. We beg and we pray that you will take care of yourself and you will go out and vote not because you like somebody. Vote objectively to see how this country is going to move forward. If you leave this country stagnated and accept the status quo the way it is, nothing is going to change. If you want to see change, you be the change. ANOG is not asking for much, like we said before, 2-3 seats. We want to hold both of the larger parties accountable for every single aspect, every single penny of your taxpayers' dollars and your patrimony that you so deserve. Build equity amongst all. ANOG is into nation building, irrespective of where you are, who you are, what relationship you have, what religion you are, whether you're a PPP or a PNC or in between, it doesn't really matter. We're looking out for every single human being, Guyanese. With that said, thank you so very, very much again for listening to us. Give us your ears, and we wish you well come 2025. Doc, thank you so very much. Joel, thank you also very much. And our listening audience, namaste, salam alaikum, and good night to all.
Peace.